Hey, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein, and today we're going to talk about how to set up a sole proprietorship in California. Now, what a sole proprietorship is, it is the legal entity that you have if you're one person and you're starting a business and you don't set up anything else. You don't set up an LLC or corporation, and you're not in business with another person, where the default would be a partnership. There is an exception if you're legally married to the other person you're in business with. If you're legally married to that person and you're filing joint on your taxes, then it's kind of like you have a sole proprietorship because it's just going to be like that way on your taxes. But for most people, it's one person setting up a business. So the first step, you kind of don't have to do anything at all in the sense that forming the legal entity is automatic. It is the default. If you're one person starting a business, anywhere in the United States, actually, including California, you're automatically a sole proprietorship unless you set up an LLC or corporation. The second thing you're going to want to do is think about what address you're going to use for your business. And I'm having you start with this pretty early on because you're going to use the address in so many other places. Are you running your business from home and you're comfortable using that home address in places where it's going to be publicly available? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. That's really a personal choice. Maybe you want to have the public only see some other address, a PO box, a UPS store address, anytime mailbox address, a office place where you rent out like a co-working place. There's many choices for addresses that you can use. Some of them are purely mailing addresses like a PO box. And so you're still going to have to use your home address for things. Others, like a co-working space, may or may not be a physical location address. It depends on the contract you have with them. If it's more like a lease where you're actually renting out, a space, a little office, then it is more like a location and you can use that for street address things as well as mailing address things. If it's a UPS store box or an anytime mailbox box or some other mailbox place that's nearby you, it really depends. You may or may not be able to use that as your location address. I want you to be aware of this issue because I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. It depends on which business entity you're dealing with and whether or not their computer systems and databases look for, they know all the UPS store mailboxes and it's in their computer and they'll say, no, that's not a real location. I don't know for sure, but the main thing to look at is if you're working from home, I'm assuming you're not, don't have office space because that's the address you're going to use. If you're working from home, are you comfortable having that address anywhere? And do you want to have a mailbox and then use your home address for some things or want your home address off everything at all? So it's something to think about before you get to the next step. Step number 3 is, do you want to get an EIN, an employer identification number from the IRS to use as your tax ID for the business? So a sole proprietorship you can just use your social security number, but that means you got to give your social security number out to people sometimes and you may not want to do that. So you can get an EIN. Now, if you're going to hire employees, you definitely need an EIN, but side note, if you're going to hire employees, I think you should be an LLC or corporation, but that's a whole other video. So a sole proprietorship who has no employees doesn't have to get an EIN from the IRS. However, it can be helpful. So when you're needing to give your tax ID number for the business to others, you can put the EIN instead of your social security number. Now, it won't change how you're taxed or anything. So it's not important in that way. Getting an EIN can be totally free if you do it yourself on the IRS's website. Most people who have a social security number should be able to get their EIN online. And it's not that hard to do in the sense of logistics, assuming you have a social security number. If you don't have a social security number, the short version is it's much more complicated. And then you're going to probably need to hire a service to get that for you because they'll have to get also a tax ID number and all these kinds of things. However, if you're physically located in the United States and you're planning to start your own business, you probably will have a social security number because otherwise logistically you're going to be having troubles. If you don't have a social security number, then I would suggest setting up an LLC or corporation. Step number 4. Once you've decided what the marketing or trade name of your business is going to be, then you will have to decide if you need to get a DBA or what is in California called an FBN, a fictitious business name registration. So if you have a name of your business is just your name, like my business would be Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein, then I don't need a DBA because the legal name of my business matches the marketing name of my business and it's all the same. Also, if I have the name of my business, have my name in it. So it's Weinstein Financial Consulting. That's totally fine too. I don't need a DBA for that because my name is in it, Weinstein. But if you make up a totally like arbitrary name, it is super cool, awesome financial planning business, which is a terrible name. That has to have a DBA because your name is not in the name of that business. Your DBA, or in California, fictitious business name registration, is filed with your county. Now, personally, I use dbastore.com. I'm not an affiliate. I just like them, dbastore.com, to do this filings. And the reason is because not only do you have to file with your county, you also have to publish it in a legal newspaper. And you don't want to have to like call around all these newspapers and deal with all that stuff. You just go to dbastore.com and they handle it for you. I think their prices are very, very reasonable and they do a good job. So that's my recommendation for you if you end up needing to do a DBA or FBN registration. Step number 5 is you need to figure out if you need a business license or a home occupation permit or something like that from your city or town that you live in. Maybe your county if you're in an unincorporated area. What this is in some places, and it depends on the city or town and how they're regulating businesses. In some places, it's really just a tax. A lot of times it's called a business tax certificate. And you have to pay some annual fee, might be $125 a year, to get this certificate from that city or town. Then typically they just care about the money. So you just fill out the forms, you pay them the money, they're happy. In other cities and towns, it is a business license and permitting system based upon your use of the location. This can get more complicated and messy because these cities and towns really want to regulate what people are doing in their particular places. So if you're working from home, they will have rules about what kind of businesses you're allowed to run from home. It might have a specific list. It's only these certain businesses. Or it might say a list for businesses they don't allow. Or it might be about the character of the business. So for example, I was working from home in San Jose, California years ago, and actually had clients come to my house and everything like that. And so I had to get a business license, but they call it a tax certificate, and a home occupation permit, I think. It was years ago, so the rules have changed since then. And I had very specific rules for what I could do. So I could have a sign, but it had to be a certain size. I could have clients come, but only 2 people at once, which was fine. At the time I was doing like estate planning stuff, so I might need a couple to come. So they may have specific rules on what they allow or don't allow. Sometimes they don't allow you to have inventory. Sometimes, because they don't want a lot of like boxes and shipping to change the characterization of the neighborhood. Maybe you're not allowed to have clients come to your house. Maybe you're not allowed to have things that have like a lot of smells and stuff. So you can't do welding in your garage as a business because that creates potential fire hazard or smells or things like that. You really have to look at your specific city or town and see what their rules are. Some don't have any business license at all. So you may not have any requirement, but you got to look into this. Typically, the big issue is if you don't do this, a couple of things can happen. One is they realize from some other filing that you've done at the state level, at the county level, whatever, that you have a business that operates there, and then they send you a bill and it includes all the late fees. So that sucks. That typically happens with the tax certificate people. It could also be that someone reports you for having a business. It's probably really going to be if someone knows, but let's say your neighbor sees all these cars coming to your house and they think that you're selling drugs or whatever, and you're not selling drugs, you just have a business, but now you don't have the permit you need. So, it really depends on the kind of business you would ever get caught. The other way it can happen is you get in trouble for something else, and then the fact that you don't have a required business license is the thing that you actually get in trouble for. It's kind of similar to the neighbor being mad at you. So I think you should look into this. If you decide to not get a business license or permit because you can't comply with the rules, then just be aware of the risk that you happen to be taking. Number 6 is, do you need a seller's permit or a sales tax permit in California? When I say or, I mean it's the same thing. It's technically called a seller's permit, but it's for sales taxes. If you're selling products in California, generally speaking, you will need to pay sales tax on it. Technically, the customer is paying the sales tax, and you're just taking that sales tax and giving it to the state. And then it also goes to the local areas and things like that too. For the seller's permit, one thing that I found recently is that you have to use a street address for them. They look up the address that you send them. And if it's a UPS store box, they will reject your application and make you give them your home address because they won't actually be able to find you. You're also going to have to give like your driver's license number and all kinds of other random pieces of information because the state of California wants to know where you are. So if you're not turning that sales tax over to them, they can come find you and make you do that. If you're just doing services, generally speaking, in California, you don't need to do sales taxes. That's not true of every single state. Every state has their own rules, but if you're just doing stuff in California, this is what you need to do. Now, if you're just selling on marketplace facilitators like Amazon, FBN, Etsy, eBay, etc., you may not need a seller's permit because they're handling the sales taxes for you. It just depends upon where you're doing the selling of your products. Item number 7 is, do you need any special permits or licenses for the particular kind of business you have? So for many of you, you don't need anything like this. But if you're selling certain things like food items or something where you have to be licensed or something where you need a special permit, where they need to inspect your location, then you're going to need to get on that and get those special permits or licenses. For most people, it tends to be either they need a license to do their profession, like a license to practice law, for example, or it's that you need a permit for the kinds of things you're doing because it impacts public health, like selling food products. So depending upon your particular business, you have to look at, do you need a special license or permit? This could come either at the state level or the city or town level. So you're going to have to just look into that for your particular industry. The second to last thing you're going to need to do to set up your sole proprietorship is look at insurance. I think every business should have some kind of business insurance for a couple reasons. One reason is that if you don't get insurance for your business, your homeowner's insurance or your renter's insurance will find out that you're running a business out of your home and they will drop you from their policy. And you don't want that. So if you go get your own business insurance, then if they come in and say, do you have business insurance on your business, you just give them the proof of that and then they're happy and you don't have to fight with them about that. The next reason you want to look at getting business insurance is that if you get sued, if someone claims that you harmed them physically, whatever it is, then the insurance company pays for the lawyer to defend you. And then obviously the third reason is they pay for the damages, whatever that is, if it ends up coming to that. The kinds of business insurances you want to look at is business property insurance to cover your camera, to cover your laptop, to cover whatever equipment you have, your inventory, all that kind of stuff that you have in your business. That won't be covered by your renter's or homeowner's insurance unless you have a special rider or something. You need your own business property insurance to cover that. It'll also have a higher limit than your homeowner's or rental insurance will have on that kind of equipment. You also want to get business liability insurance. This covers someone who slips and falls, which you may not have because maybe you don't deal with anybody in person, but also covers a whole bunch of other kinds of business liability. You also may need other kinds of insurance. If you use your car for business, you may need business car insurance for your car. And then you may need insurance that are special for the kind of work that you're doing. So I have malpractice insurance for myself as a lawyer. You may need errors and omissions insurance to protect your personal liability as the person running this business. Now, where to get the insurance? You can Google online and look for all kinds of different quotes from different business insurance places. For a sole proprietorship business, you may be able to just get it from your homeowner's or renter's insurance company as a rider on your insurance or a separate policy that they write in there for your sole proprietorship business. That can be really helpful so that way if something happens, then you don't have your homeowner's insurance and your business insurance fighting about who is going to have to cover it because it's the same company. The last thing you're needing to look at for your sole proprietorship business are contracts and things like that, specifically privacy policy for your website, terms and conditions agreement, your consulting contract, whatever. It depends on the kind of business that you have. You probably have some kind of website where you collect personally identifiable information from people, so you need a privacy policy, but you may also need some kind of contract for what people are buying from you. So terms and conditions, if they're buying products off your website, you may need a consulting agreement if you're doing consulting, etc. So I know that's a fairly long list of all the things you need to do as a sole proprietorship. It is shorter than what you need to do as an LLC or corporation. And mostly that's because A sole proprietorship doesn't need to be legally set up to exist because it exists automatically. A sole proprietorship can be a great way to get started on your business before you create an LLC or corporation because the costs are lower than creating an LLC or corporation, especially in California, and you can test out your business and make some money and then use that money to set up your LLC or corporation later. Again, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, feel free to post them below and I'll try to point you in the right direction. Thumbs up to help the algorithm, share this with more people like you, and subscribe if you like any more videos like this. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.